Okay, James, I see your comment. Thank you for letting us know that. Appreciate that. Okay, looks like we've got some folks joining the meeting now. It's just a little after 6. I think I'll just give it just another maybe 30 seconds here, and then we'll start. Okay, that's good to see. Thank you, Theodore. Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Matt Kilmartin. I'm a park planner with the Walton Hills Park and Recreation District and the district's project manager for this project. With me tonight is Ashley Doty of 3J Consulting. Ashley is our design consultant for the project. In addition, we also have Gary Keck here, the district's design and development manager, and Nicole Paulson, another park planner with the district, both to help me facilitate the meeting. Tonight, we'll be providing an overview of the Permanent Restrooms Grant Project. We'll review our progress to date and the restroom improvements proposed at all 3 of our existing parks, Hazeldale Park, Schiffler Memorial Park, and Greenway Park. A goal of this meeting is to gather public input on these proposed improvements and provide us an opportunity to answer any of your questions. I want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the community members who are joining us tonight or live tonight live or later on YouTube. We're looking forward to hearing your input and answering all of your questions. During the presentation, if you have any questions or comments to share, please share those with us by typing them into the chat using the chat feature available on your screen. We'll make time to answer those questions as we go, or if we'll be addressing your topic soon, we may wait until we get to that point in the presentation. We'll also have some time at the end of the presentation to address questions as well. If for some reason we don't have an answer for you today, we'll be happy to follow up with you after the meeting if you're willing to share your email in the chat, or you can also email me directly with your questions anytime after the meeting. I want to announce that we are recording this meeting to share on the district's YouTube channel in the next few days to provide another avenue for the community to learn about this great project. Please note that I'll be pasting some links into the chat box here shortly, including my email address, web addresses to the park web pages, and web address to the district's YouTube channel. And finally, I want to note that we're keeping your cameras and microphones off for this meeting only to help us best ensure that this meeting is safe and friendly for everyone. So do please remember to use the chat feature to share your questions or comments. And with that, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a brief moment and just paste these into the chat. I'll put my email first, then I'll do each of the park web page addresses. There's Hazeldale. There's Schiffler. There's Greenway. And finally, there's the district's YouTube channel. Okay, I'll also paste those again towards the end of the presentation, and we have them listed on the last slide of the presentation for your reference. Okay, so with that, I'd like to jump into the presentation. During the district's recent community visioning process, community members emphasized the importance of adding permanent accessible restrooms to parks. This project is helping the district fulfill that goal in response to the community feedback we received. THPRD and Washington County have been awarded funding through the American Rescue Plan Act, and more specifically, the Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund grant, to add new permanent public restroom facilities to existing parks within our district to improve the level of service for the community. This is a grant that our board of directors pursued and were successfully awarded in 2021. And we really appreciate their hard work and dedication getting this funded for our community. The district has partnered with Washington County to combine our funds, with THPRD agreeing to lead the project development for all 3 restrooms. Staff here has coordinated with our board of directors, our management team, and an internal design team to identify park sites within the district having the highest need for restroom additions while offering the greatest benefit to the community, and to assess the viability of each site. Some of the criteria we're looking at include the proximity to existing utilities, maintenance and security access, as well as minimizing site and natural resource impacts. This vicinity map here shows the 3 proposed locations within the district at Hazeldale Park, Schiffler Park, and Greenway Park. This is a good example of the permanent restrooms we're proposing. We have a lot of this style of restroom throughout the district. This restroom building comes pre-engineered and pre-assembled as a kit that's delivered to the site on a large truck and placed on the prepared building pad by crane. Our contractors would then make the final utility connections and complete all other related improvements, like accessible sidewalk connections, any landscaping that's needed, things like that. We can get a good value by selecting the restroom kit that we need and procuring it through an established government cooperative purchasing program this way. What you see here is what we're referring to as a double stall restroom. This one's located outside our Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center. The double stall restroom has 2 separate accessible restrooms, each with their own lockable entry door. A single stall restroom, on the other hand, would be very similar, but with only 1 accessible restroom and 1 door. All restrooms will be gender neutral and equipped with a flushing toilet, sink, baby changing table, electric hand dryer, low voltage lighting, and other standard fixtures. These restrooms will be open to the public year-round, but will be equipped with automated door locks so that each restroom will be locked at night while the parks are closed to prevent misuse. Okay, we're going to take a closer look now at each of the 3 locations, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions about each site before we move on to the next. And again, there will also be time at the end of the presentation to ask questions as well. We'll start with Hazeldale Park. Here's an aerial map of Hazeldale Park and a site photo of the location being proposed for the new restroom. This location is directly adjacent to the existing parking lot, accessible off Southwest 192nd Avenue and either Southwest Prospect Street or Prospect Place. We would replace the existing porta potties at this location with a permanent double stall restroom. Okay. Here, I'll turn it over to Ashley to review some of the design aspects at this location.
Hi, everyone. Just a reminder, I'm Ashley Doty with 3J Consulting. I'm the project manager helping with the civil engineering. Just a basic overview of what we're doing at the site. This is, as Matt mentioned, a 2-stall restroom structure. We're going to be designing and installing right there in the current location of the porta potties and installing concrete sidewalk for ADA accessibility. There will be no tree removals or anything as part of this installation, so it's a pretty straightforward construction. And I think at this time, if we're going to do questions by park, so if anyone has any specific questions for Hazeldale, now would be a great time to ask.
Great, thank you, Ashley. And Gary, can you help with the questions if there are any in the chat?
Yeah, can you hear me, Matt?
Yes.
So we did get one earlier. It came from Mary, and it was in general. And she says, hi, the Zoom is only in English. And Matt, I don't know that we received any requests for a translator to be here tonight. But I think what we could do is look at the YouTube channel when this is up to get translation onto this if we need to. Unless you have another take on that.
No, absolutely. That's my understanding as well.
Okay. And then we had a question from Theodore and Schiffler. When we get to Schiffler, we can talk about that one.
That'd be great. Yeah, let's hold that. We'll look at Schiffler next here.
And then let's see, we got one from Theodore saying, given that you need access for a crane truck, what would be the problem with making that access into a small lot? So Theodore, I don't know if you're referring to Schiffler still or Hazeldale. But Matt, you want to talk about how these are set? You know, the cranes are going to be, how are we going to get the cranes in to use to set these? Maybe go through that for Hazeldale, and we can talk about it with Schiffler and then with Greenway as well.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if Theodore might be talking about Schiffler Park since we've got that new residential lot right next to it now. But in this case here at Hazeldale, we would need to use some of the parking lot here for a bit during construction. And this site is a pretty good access. In fact, all three of our sites are pretty good access for the material trucks and the crane. We don't see any issues with that here, including overhead issues or any tree impacts or anything like that. In fact, I'm not sure if Ashley mentioned, but at this site and the other two sites, we are also avoiding any tree impacts, so we don't anticipate removing any trees for these projects. But the crane should be able to have close proximity here, particularly because of the parking lot access. So should be able to just drive in and drop it right into place.
And that's all the questions I see right now, Matt, for Hazeldale.
Okay, thank you. All right, in that case, we are going to move on to Schiffler. And again, we'll have some time at the end of the presentation to circle back if there are more questions or we need some clarification. So moving on to Schiffler Park, here you see an aerial map of the park, also with a photo of the proposed location. We're proposing to locate the new restroom along the southeast entrance to the park, not far from the existing picnic shelter, which is just a little north of there. That's a heavily reserved picnic shelter and a really popular park. Those of you that live near there, I'm sure you know that. And again, in this case, we would be replacing the existing porta potties at this location with a permanent double stall restroom building. So again, I will turn it over to Ashley here to review some of the design aspects at this location.
Hi, similar to Hazeldale, like Matt mentioned, this is a double stall restroom. We are again putting the restrooms in the same location as the existing porta potty. We will be installing concrete sidewalk for ADA accessibility. And if there's any questions related to Schiffler, which I think we have some, then now is a great time to ask.
Great, thank you, Ashley. And Gary, if you can help with the questions in the chat again.
Yeah, so circling back to Theodore's question about the crane, he was referring to Schiffler, it looks like. He says Hazeldale is obvious. We've got right by the existing parking lot. He goes on to say, I was talking about Schiffler with the new lot right beside. The new lot also provides a potential existing sewer hookup. Then he goes on to say answers can wait for Schiffler until we get to it.
Yeah.
So he's talking about the lot that you were referring to, Matt. So
okay. Yeah, I totally understand. And great comments. Thank you, Theodore. The one thing I'll mention with that that we're aware of just by meeting with the city of Beaverton, which is our permitting jurisdiction in this case, any construction activity or improvements or impacts to that residential lot just next to the park that we now own, that would be across a property line So we want to be careful about making sure that we don't impact that site, because our permits will really only be for the existing park, within the existing park boundaries. So any improvements or impacts don't extend to that lot through this project, this permitting process. So I just want to point that out. But I do agree, you make a great point. That would be a great spot to bring in a crane. The house is removed there now. It's a pretty accessible lot. And that would be a pretty accessible point next to that restroom location. Otherwise, obviously, we're going to bring the truck up Erickson. The pathway there is not really heavy vehicle rated. So we need to really work with the contractor and the restroom vendor to make sure that we've got, a good route to this location while minimizing impacts.
And I agree, Matt. I agree with Theodore too. That lot next door is a good opportunity to put the crane in there. But there are no other questions, Matt, for this one that I see in the chat box.
Okay, great. And again, we can circle back at the end of the presentation. So moving on. Here, lastly, we'll look at Greenway Park. And again, here you see an aerial map of the park along with a site photo of the proposed location. This location is adjacent to Greenway Elementary School in an arm of the park that includes tennis courts, a pavilion, and a playground with a direct pathway connection into the main park and to Fano Creek Greenway Trail. At this site, we'd install a single stall restroom building. And I'll turn it over to Ashley once more to review some of the design aspects at Greenway Park.
Hi, so with the single stall restroom installation here, we were trying to locate it away from setbacks and property lines, also taking into account easy access from the existing pathways. We will install the concrete sidewalk for ADA accessibility as well. If there are any questions for Greenway, now is a great time to ask.
Great. And again, Gary, if you can help us with any questions in the chat.
Yeah, so Matt, I do see one here from Peggy. We've got, it says Greenway Park. It seems to me that Park View is almost a separate park. It's over a quarter mile from the main part of the park. And then she goes on to say, would you also keep the current temporary restroom? So kind of two questions. So maybe Matt, go over why we chose this spot in the park, and then also talk about the porta potty that's there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we looked at that pretty thoroughly. Ideally, we would be able to put a restroom along the main trail. However, this site in particular would be a challenge for maintenance and security access. And we also have a number of natural resources that we're worried about impacting there, as well as some challenges with finding existing utilities to tie into. So you're right. The pathway connection is about a quarter mile from this point to the connection with the main trail and the playground down there in the main portion of the park. But we're trying to locate a restroom so it can be equitable for the greatest amount of users for the park. And with the tennis court and the pavilion and playground here, it makes good sense for folks here to use it and still accessible from the main trail and main portion of the park. With those other challenges I mentioned, it makes it pretty difficult to put the restroom deeper into the main park. And then whether we would keep the temporary restrooms open, I'm not sure where those are. Gary, you might know. I'm thinking that's more internal in the main park. And I don't believe we're looking at removing any of the other temporary restrooms, the porta potties that are existing in this case. We would just be adding this permanent restroom to this location.
Matt, there is a porta potty near this restroom right against the fence that we have. And I would imagine we would remove that porta potty because we'll have the permanent restroom there at that time. But you're correct. Any other porta potties within the park, and I don't know of any offhand really, we would leave, but the one next to this one, we would remove.
Thank you, Gary. I do recall that now. Yeah, it's up against the
Yep.
fence of the elementary school, isn't it?
Yep, yeah. So then we got a couple more here, Matt. We've got James says, following that question we just have, he says, I have Peg's question, comma, Greenway is a large park. So I think he was agreeing with Peggy's comment above, which you just responded to.
Yeah.
And then Peggy asks, who's going to use this restroom? Again, referring to, I think, the location.
Mhm.
And then James writes, a restroom near the Conestoga Inn would be very welcome, but I can see the point about being further from the street. Given the placement, can we put a solar panel on the restroom roof? Is a question. Matt?
Yeah, solar panels, that is something we're looking into. Our internal design team is considering whether we want to add solar as kind of backup power for these structures. We won't intend to make these restrooms off grid. We do want to have them serviced by water. We want the flushing toilets and good hand washing facilities. We know that's important for the community. But that solar is something we're looking into. I'm not sure if our manufacturer for the restrooms has the capability. We're kind of working with them right now to see what that would take to do that. So we'll be fleshing that out as we move along further in our design development and permitting process. That's a great comment.
And then, thank you, Matt. So Ginger's writing, I think she's responding to the location again. She says, oh, that's disappointing. So there's no plan to put a bathroom along the disc golf trail. Is the question, Matt?
Right.
That
No,
is correct.
that is correct. This would be the location for the new restroom.
And then Peggy writes, the main temp restroom is down by the central loop near the golf disc course. I hope it's not removed. Also necessary for users of the regional trail, the primary purpose of the park per other THPRD folks.
Okay.
And again,
Yeah,
we don't intend to remove those within the park like that.
I would agree. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions?
I don't.
Matt, this is Nicole. I wanted to respond to Theodore had a question up above related to the city for Schiffler Park, the city of Beaverton using the existing lot for
Yeah,
Or-
they did some staging and yep.
did we
Gary-
address that? I'm sorry,
We did not, Nicole. I missed that one. Sorry, Theodore. I
Okay.
got by me.
I'm happy to speak to that a little bit. We are working closely with the city of Beaverton for one of their projects, I believe along Erickson Street. And in that, in their project, they are using that site as a temporary staging area. It is deemed temporary. And through City of Beaverton and Clean Water Services standards, that type of temporary facility of a site access is okay for a limited duration, but it all needs to be removed and reestablished back in its original condition. Therefore, it wouldn't be maintained or continue to be maintained as an access lot in that fashion.
And thank you, Nicole. Appreciate that. And I might just kind of tag on to that just with a little more detail, Theodore, just regarding again the limits of our project. We have a conditional use, a previous conditional use when we developed Schiffler Park. which established that park boundary. And it was since then that we purchased that additional lot just next to us. Through a permitting process, in this case, in the city of Beaverton, we're required to do what's called a major modification to an existing conditional use. And so we're basically coming back and modifying that original conditional use, which again is defined by those park boundaries at that time. So that's kind of why we can't, we want to be careful about what we do on that adjacent property. I just wanted to mention that. Okay. If there's no other questions there, I'll go ahead and move on. And I just want to touch on the overall project schedule and next steps before we conclude our presentation. So far, we've completed our initial site assessments and concept planning. And we're currently completing our community engagement and are moving into the design development and land use permitting phase of the project. We anticipate completing construction documents, construction permitting, and all restroom procurements by next summer of 2023. We'll bid for construction in the fall of 2023, with construction starting in winter of 2024 to complete the project by June of 2024, in time for summer activities. And with that, we'll now make some additional time for any more questions on any of these restroom locations. And remember, type your questions into the chat. If you have any questions or comments that arise after this meeting, please feel free to email me directly or comment through the project webpage, which I'll paste that into the chat again. And I have listed on the very next slide as well for reference. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's see if we have any last questions before we wrap things up.
Matt, I'm not seeing any. I see, thanks for the presentation. Good luck with everything. And then we got Ginger said thank you. So.
Okay, great. All right, then thank you everyone for attending and watching this presentation. We really appreciate your time and your thoughtful input. If questions or comments arise after this meeting, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please feel free to email me and I'll be happy to get back to you. Remember to visit the project web pages to sign up for project updates and share comments about this project, and visit the district's YouTube channel to view this presentation again or share it with your neighbors. Have a wonderful night, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And I am going to go ahead and post that information into the chat bar again, just for reference.